network to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ebro in the Morning with Rosenberg. And Laura Stiles is on assignment and joining us, NBA legend Muggsy Bogues.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Please. Talk about this new book before we get into the history of Muggsy Bogues.
Yes, Muggsy, the kid from the projects to the Godfather of Small Ball, just was released on April the 12th last month. And I wanted to put this out mainly because, we all go through things, and a lot of kids, especially I want the parents to understand, if they have kids, and, we all go through times where we lack our confidence and we don't believe in the things that we capable of doing in our head. And I just want to give them a sense that anything is possible, especially when you understand the importance of confidence and how I was able to impact players that I play with as well as current players today. So it's about relationships. Me and my wife, separated 10 years and we divorced and we found our way back with one another in 2015.
Wow. You were broken up for how long?
We was divorced for 10 years. Which was unheard of in terms of getting back with that individual.
So let's focus on confidence, right? 5'3", playing in the NBA, right? Your whole game, that was everything, right? Physical ability and believing in yourself and knowing what you're capable of. That's
the ultimate. That's where it all starts. And it started as a kid, believing in yourself, having that understanding that you can be whatever you want to be. And I know that seems like a cliche, but when you have that type of confidence within yourself, anything is possible, and you're in total control of it. And I felt like I was in control of my destiny. And I think what allowed me to reach it was the things that I endured as an early child at the age of 5 years old.
This is in Baltimore?
In Baltimore, growing up in the city of Baltimore, getting shot at the age of 5. That dramatic experience changed my mindset. Which, when the kids was being cruel on me on the basketball court because of my size, after going through all that, those words was the least of my worries, and hearing that allowed me to kind of focus more or less on the skill set that I needed to learn as opposed to me just being short and them making fun of me. But once I understood that game and the confidence continued to grow, that's where the journey began.
Did you go to a Dunbar in Baltimore? Where'd you?
I went to Dunbar High School in Baltimore, Maryland, which we was fortunate enough to have 4 of my teammates make it to the NBA.
Who else is on that Dunbar team?
It was myself, the late Reggie Lewis.
I thought so, yeah.
Who played with Boston Celtics, Reggie Williams, who was drafted 4th overall on that draft, and then David Wingate, who played with
Wingate. That was one high school team.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they consider us as probably the best high school team that's ever been.
Is it the best Dunbar? It's the best Dunbar team of all time?
Yeah, absolutely. We went 59-0 for 2 seasons. We had each player on that team get a Division I scholarship.
Wow.
So you got 15 kids that was fortunate enough to go D1, and 4 of us out of that group was fortunate enough to make it all the way to the NBA.
Who was the in your eyes at the time, who was the best player on that team?
Well, Reggie Williams was the best player.
Reggie Williams was.
Reggie Williams was the #1 player in the country.
Okay.
Yeah, he at the time, him and Billy Thompson, kid that played in New Jersey up at Camden, was considered a 1 and 2. And after we beat Camden, New Jersey by 30 plus points, we got that recognition, and then he got the recognition as being the #1 player in the country.
And then Reggie Lewis ended up probably becoming the most prolific player in the NBA, at least from a scoring standpoint, until he passed.
Without a doubt.
So he just developed over time? Like Reggie just got better and better?
No, Reg was always good. Reg just happened to be, and Coach understood that having that type of talent coming off the bench, because Reggie Williams and him played the same position. But having that type of skill set coming off the bench, it just elevated that second unit and elevated our team even more. And Reg accepted that challenge and just took it on to Northeastern and became the player he knew he was capable of being, and he was the first All-Star amongst all of us.
That must have really that must have floored all you guys when you lost him. Then that must have been crazy.
Yeah, it was
so sudden.
It was devastating. We was happened to be playing him in the playoff. The Hornets playing against the Boston Celtics.
Right.
And he fell during the game, and we thought that he got tripped. And of course, afterwards finding out the actual cause of it, it was devastating. And finding out later on that summer, he lost his life, and that's when I lost.
At Brandeis, at the practice facility, yeah.
Yeah, because I lost my dad a week before Reg had lost his life.
Wow.
So that was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Understanding your role, right? Like hearing you talk about just that dynamic in high school of a great player being a part of the second team, right? What did that teach you about understanding your role when it became time for you to lead teams, lead an offense, start all of those things, right? Like understanding your role in any ecosystem, right? Because you existed as defensive tenacity, right? As well as setting up, the rest of the team at your position.
Well, and 1 year, really a prolific scorer too. You averaged like 16 points and really kind of were a score first guy for a moment. So you did it all.
Well, I understood what my role was and what that position calls for as a point guard. And I know we got today's game a lot of scoring point guards, but back in our era you had those traditional point guards, the John Stocktons of the world. But we also had scoring point guards, the Gary Paytons and the Tim Hardaway. So we had a little collection of both. But for me, having the understanding of who I was and what my role would be and how I could be impactful on the floor, I knew I had to know how to run a team. I had to make guys around me better, as well as being tenacious on defense, making it very difficult for guys to bring the ball up the court because that's where it starts. That's where the offense starts as the point guard. Now, if you kind of disrupting that and allowing them to get in their offense later part of the shot clock, then it seems like you doing your job and you putting them in a situation. And that's what I understood early on. And that gave me the ability to be the guy that I wanted to be on the floor, not coming off the bench, being able to run a team, start a team, and having the type of talent around you, knowing how to put those guys in a situation where they can be successful as to be less successful.
Well, because it was always, he's 5'3". So you had to show and prove in other ways because they were gonna ding you with that 5'3" off top. Any scout, any coach, every time. So it had to be intellect and these other elements that you and I realized that, sitting here talking to you in this book, but that comprehension and leaning into that work ethic and the work that it takes, how often throughout your career were you second guessed even after you proved yourself? Like how often did it always come back to second guessing Muggsy Bogues because of his height?
Well, I always consider those second guess. Those were the ones that the inquisitive minds, Once you were able to do it and able to showcase it and able to have that impact, then it should be, okay, he should be included. But it's always going to be the case each level because each level they feel like a guy's a bigger and stronger. He was successful in playing in in elementary school, but what's going to happen when he get to junior high school? Back then we didn't have middle schools. So it was junior high school. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, what are you going to do in junior high school? And then it's like, oh, well, okay, maybe so he had success in junior high, but the kids in the high school level a lot bigger and a lot stronger. So it's always been that proven aspect for me. But for me, it always been, and I always had that understanding, it's just people just don't know yet. And I always say the inquisitive mind, you just don't know. Because the way I impact the game as a point guard, being out there, and it's all about just running your team, knowing how to make guys around you better, being an extension of the coach. And you having that understanding and you having that type of impact on the floor, and me, as I say, you play against the best, you have success against the best, you need to be included with the best.
You started in Washington, and when I was a kid in '87, and we had Manute Bol as well at that time on the Bullets in DC, and you guys were so beloved by the children of the DC area. What was that time like? What was Manute Bol like? I think John Williams was on that team. Mm-hmm. Was Bernard King on that team?
Bernard King, Moses Malone.
Moses was on the team. You had a lot of legends on
Jeff
there.
Malone.
Jeff Malone, who was a fantastic player.
Terry Catlish, Daryl Walker.
Yep, Daryl Walker, hell of a vet.
Yeah, so those were my vets. Those are the guys that took me under their wing and made Moses and Manute rest in peace. But that was the beginning, playing with a guy like Manute, because when they see the tall and the short of it, of course, they want to try to make the fun of it, but we were secure within ourselves.
Well, and you guys both, when you think about it, it's really interesting. If you're ignorant to the sport, I could see you thinking Muggsy and Manute was sort of a novelty act. And then you guys both had fantastic careers. Manute's game developed as the years went on.
Absolutely.
Developed a three-pointer. You know, could play great defense. Like he was a really solid player,
He was
and of
solid.
course a beloved. You know, a beloved guy, a hero in Sudan, just a wonderful person. What can you say about Manute as the guy? What was he like? Because everyone always has great stories.
I mean, he had an unbelievable personality. He was one of the funniest guys you can ever meet. And he and I, of course, we spent a lot of time together because we were the youngest. And back then, we didn't have private planes. We used to fly commercial.
Yo.
And we had to go through the airports. And, of course,
Come on.
you only had 8 first-class seats.
Right.
So you can imagine, Manute and I was one of the two that got bumped. So we in the back. And can you imagine a 7'6" in the back with his knees
Oh,
up?
because y'all are the youngest too.
Yes, we didn't fly first class, so we had to fly coach, and he and I in the back, and his little knees all up to his chest and so forth, and he's sitting there trying to tell me about how he killed lions with a spear, you know. And I used to always joke, I'm like, what kind of lions you got out there? Lions with no teeth in their mouth, you know. And he's always get us jokers, tell that joke about him killing lions. But he was such a joy to be around. I remember he and I was playing one-on-one, and Moses was just geeking it up. And you just like Manute like to shoot jump shots,
Yeah.
right? So when he shoots a jump shot, he puts it right by his ear.
Yeah, I remember.
And I had a little vertical back then, and I can get up. So I blocked the shot, and boy, did that piss him off. He chased me around the gym for about 15 minutes, and boy, I never seen Moses laugh so hard. Man, we just in tears and stitches just
By the way, it's
watching Manute try to catch
and it's
me.
interesting because those guys who you came into, like, so it's 1987.
Yes.
The veterans on that team who had been in the league for 10, 12 years had literally been in the NBA when the NBA was a totally different thing
Yes.
than it was by the time you got there. Like, they didn't make a ton of money.
Right.
The league had drugs. It was out of control in the 70s.
Very violent, very physical.
Yeah. So, like, what were
smoking
those-
cigarettes in
Yeah.
the locker room? I'm like, what the hell?
Was it
I
like
got
that when you
myself-
got there? Was it still like
yeah,
that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was at halftime, and that's when at halftime.
Wait, cats were smoking cigarettes at halftime.
At halftime, one of our games, and I ain't got to name names, but at halftime, we go in the locker room, and I'm thinking, okay, man, we about to get this pep talk. And I see a couple guys get a brewski and smoking a cigarette. I look at Mo, I'm like, Mo, what? He like, little pimp. He used to call me pimp. Little pimp. Better get used to it. This is what them boys do after every halftime. I'm like, oh my God, I thought in that locker room would be Gatorade where I came from in
Yo,
college.
that is
Nah.
hilarious.
You went to
It had
Wake
been-
Forest, right?
Yeah, I went to Wake
Yeah,
Forest. But that introduced me to the league, and that let me know that I was amongst men.
Yeah, it's a different sort of thing. Now,
Absolutely.
there's a story out there about you and Jordan, and Jordan being nasty to you in some way. Is that story true? What are your
Oh.
feelings on MJ?
Well, people want to keep making up stories, but that's an internet story. You
Really?
know, yeah, it's an internet story. Even though MJ always joking me and calling me little fella and all that type of stuff. But I think anything that happens on the internet is supposed to be true these days.
Right.
Yeah, so that.
So he wasn't unusually. He was a competitor
Yeah.
and would talk trash,
Right.
but the same way he did to everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the internet story was that he's supposed to have called me a midget.
Yes,
And
that's the story on the internet.
he's supposed to call me a midget, and that destroyed my career.
And that, yeah, I don't know what that. But once you heard that, you fell apart.
After my 10th year in the league.
Yeah, and that would have been the first time someone had made that joke to you.
First time someone had made that joke about me. Come on, that's
Your man from Baltimore.
Yeah.
People have said worse.
Yeah, man from ball, absolutely. And but the thing happened was the timing. Well, I had got hurt after the series and I was hurt during that series when we played Chicago, and right after the series, I had surgery on my knee, and that was one of the reasons. And then from that moment on, I missed the next year, the complete season, which I was only supposed to miss 6 to 8 weeks, but I wound up missing the whole complete season because my knee wasn't right. And that's when I discovered acupuncture, and I was able to get back on the floor. But my numbers that went down, and then they kind of
They've tied the story now into MJ.
To MJ and him.
Was there
calling midget. So,
was there
but
a
it was funny.
bond? Was there any sort of bond between you and the other shorter guys in the league, the Spud Webbs, the Mark Prices? Was there any sort of like fraternity about you guys? 'Cause y'all have to work on a different level. Like, let's just be honest.
I mean, it's just a special fraternity within the NBA,
Right.
You know, but in terms of us small guys having a special club,
Or
no.
a rivalry.
Not a special.
You didn't have beef with Spud Webb in these streets.
That's my guy.
Okay.
You know, Spud and I, we go all the way back from college. Him, NC State, I'm at Wake
Oh,
Forest.
wow. Y'all were
Right.
battling.
So
all the way
yeah,
back
we go all
then.
the way back from that from that era. And then Mark Price, I guess you consider him that small, being 6 feet tall.
Yeah, but I guess that's still quite a ways from
5'7" to
Yeah,
5'3". Yeah, but no, I mean, it was great, man, just to have guys represent, because we had different variations of it. We had Michael Adams.
Oh, Michael
Michael Adams was
5'10", I think.
5'10".
He was
had Tim
nice.
Hardaway. Then we had little Greg Grant that came in the league, was 5'5", played a little bit with the Knicks. And then, of course, Earl Boyden got his opportunity as well. But we was totally different. I was different from all those guys. And I always looked at myself as that throwback point guard. I was the pass first type of guy. I wish all those guys were more scoring, trying to score more than.
And of course, Spud's dunk contest appearance sort of changed. That became sort of such a big part of his brand.
Absolutely.
Was the poster of him hitting the dunk.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it should be. I mean,
It's incredible.
5'7", being able to get up like that.
How close could you get?
I was able to dunk the
Yeah, he
basketball,
could
but
dunk.
I just didn't never dunk in a game.
But I was gonna say, but you never dunked in a game, right?
No, I had a 44-inch vertical.
Oh, okay. But now
No,
we
you
hope
had to.
Now hold on. But this is important because I know in my mind Spud Webb dunked,
Yes.
but on the court I never saw Muggsy dunk.
Right.
So did it ever after?
I
Spud,
want to say I saw it inside the NBA with like Ahmad Rashad or something back in the day or something, and you was dunking in like warm-ups or something.
I warm-up game or tip in the ball, come to practice all the time. But
Did you ever hope though, especially after Spud had hit his dunk? Did you ever hope that you would get that moment in a game on a breakaway where you could hit the dunk in game,
No, I had plenty of opportunities to do it.
and you just didn't go for it?
Nah, I just didn't go for it. I mean, 2 was 2 for me. That's how I always look at it.
Lay it in.
Yeah. But and then again, I never wanted to take the chance of had to go up there and by yourself and then miss the dunk.
Risk versus reward. That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, coaches get upset when a guy don't finish that play. Especially when I've been a coach. If you're gonna dunk, you better finish it. Especially if you by yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So no, I never took that chance.
The new book, My Life from a Kid in the Projects to Godfather of Small Ball. You played with Steph's dad, didn't you, for a while?
Yeah, Dale and I played 11 years together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 in Charlotte and 2 in Toronto. And, of course, we got a special bond with one another. And
So you saw Steph from little. Speaking of small ball, even when he was in college, he was considered at Davidson. He was considered too small.
yeah, and that's what I say. One of the great things I love about watching Steph and watching his whole maturation of becoming who he is that as a kid, giving this little kid that airplane ride at the age of 4 years old in the locker room, and then not even knowing that he would turn out to be the greatest shooter ever laced it up in the NBA, and him even doing the forward in my book, mentioning that he just wished that he couldn't wait to get to 5'3", that he felt like he could make it into the NBA, and changing that perception of a kid, because everybody felt like you had to be 6 feet, 6'5".
How tall is Steph?
Steph is only 6'3", but he still was considered small,
Right.
Yeah.
because of his frame and his stature.
He seems smaller than 6'3" because of his thin frame.
yeah.
And is he 6'3"?
I'd say about at least 6'2". I think about 6'2". Yeah.
He's
But that's your homie, so you
Yeah,
giving
yeah,
him an
yeah, I
inch.
give him an inch.
You done docked him an inch, so I'm gonna dock him another
Yeah, I
inch
give him
just
about
because that's
6 feet.
family. He might be 6 feet tall.
I agree. He might be. He feels more like
You're
6'2".
talking like family.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, he's 6'2". If you took an inch off, that means there's another inch we could probably take off.
I
of it.
think with the shoes on, but he right around that 6'2", 6'3". Yeah.
Was he always playing back in the day as a kid?
Oh, always. I mean, they always had balls in their hands. I mean, him, my son, his Seth. I mean, they in the gym all the time. They went to practice with us. I mean, from Charlotte to Toronto, they stayed in the gym with us, and that's something that we always, ravished because they enjoyed the game, and they was just little sponges. You didn't realize how much they were soaking up, but they were just soaking up all that information because you got to imagine how many players that they've been around. They've been around a lot of stars, the LJs, the Zoes, the myself, the Vince Carter, the Tracy McGrady's, and all that. So.
And you just mentioned that. We talked about who your sort of OGs were when you showed up. When Vince and T-Mac get to Toronto, you had the turn to be the OG. What was that experience like?
It was great, and they was well receiving too. I mean, they was all in, and they wanted it. They wanted that leadership, and they wanted us to take their pressure off them. What they just only needed to just go play. They knew we had their back on every aspects of the game, on and off the court. and we had guys that was a little forceful. We had Oak. We had
Of course you did.
Yeah, we had Charles Oak. We had Antonio Davis, Kevin Willis, and those guys. So that was the beginning of it, and that was the first year that Toronto Raptors was able to make it to the playoffs.
How
And
thrilling
was
was that?
The beginning.
That
It was great. It was a great honor.
Did they go nuts up there for
absolutely,
the first? I
because-
remember the atmosphere on TV. I
Yeah.
really do in that first round series. I remember it looking insane in there.
It's I mean, because you think about it's a hockey country.
Yep.
But basketball has grown rapidly so quickly, and it mainly due to Vince.
Yeah,
Vince had a
Vince
lot of
went in there and
impact
put on
on
that.
a lot of those kids. That's one of the reasons why you got the Andrew Wiggins, the Joseph in the league, because of Vince. Vince have really impacted those kids, and they believe that one day they could be just as good as he.
When you look at the game today, and if you were to insert yourself, would you have been the same player in today's NBA that you were then?
Well, I think you ask any NBA player, they feel like they can play in any era because that's just the confidence that they have within themselves. But looking at the rules today and the way the game is played today, it's open. I mean, it's no one that's camping in the lane. No one hand checking you. There's got to.
So it would have been easier in some ways.
I
for
feel
you.
like I would have been successful. Yeah, I had a lot of good time. I don't want to say more successful, but I've been had some really good numbers. And
because your
era.
quickness, your ability to move without the
And we
ball,
got
you had to do all of that.
We got shooters out here. We got no one's camping in the lane. And then, of course, the way these guys dribble today, I mean, they dribble so high. And
You taking that?
You be taking it.
yeah, I feel like them two balls allow that type of skill that became part of their game. And I think it's bad habits, really.
Well, I mean,
Because you're got your head down when you're dribbling two balls and not looking forward, and you're going down as opposed to north and south. So I'm opposed of the two ball dribbling.
really, that's so interesting.
Yeah, you don't play the game with two balls.
So you would rather, when you're practicing,
Working
work the
skills.
offhand and then work the right hand. You work your good hand, and you work your offhand.
Yeah, you what's the difference? I mean, what you do with your right hand, you do with your left hand. You can't do with your left hand and right hand at the same time. You ain't working.
Well,
And the thing about it is that, and when you watch guys that do the two ball, and how they dribbling, and they going side to side, the ball going,
and the ball's high and.
ball is going like this as opposed to going like, so it's,
Wait, my guy, I'm a Celtics fan. We got
Yeah.
last night. Marcus Smart got picked on the last play of the game by Drew
yeah,
Holiday.
yeah, and that was
High dribble that got away from him.
Saw
and
that coming, yeah.
Just took it.
And Marcus Smart knows better because he knows when the ball goes down, that's when
course.
the opportunity we're gonna
He's a very fundamental player. That was
shoot the gaps in it.
Muggsy Bogues, man, it's great meeting you.
Same here. I really appreciate you
Congratulations
guys.
on everything.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Your health is great, physical, feeling great, still
No
in the
complaint.
gym.
Still in the gym, still able. Still got my health, and I'm so thankful.
So you got your daughter's your publicist.
Yes, she is. She's my everything.
Oh.
She keeps me on point, all my scheduling and where I need to be, as well as my foundation. She's the vice president of it as well, so I'm so thankful for her.
Hey man, we really enjoyed this. Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
guys. Appreciate
Muggsy
that.
Bogues, y'all. Yes, man.